Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What's New Mama podcast. We are your hosts, Giselle and Amy.
Hi.
Hey, guys. So today, last time we spoke about, what was it? I feel like we took
Oh my
a
God.
pause.
Yeah. We did Mother's Day episode,
We did a
right?
Mother's Day episode, and
And
then we
then,
also discussed the whole, oh my God, I'm blanking out. You know what it is? It's because we've gone back and forth with topics and like things like, oh, we should do this, but then we have our own sidebar conversation and never record it.
yeah. And then we
um,
start talking about something else. And
we
then it's
talked
just like,
about
oh,
social media and like how the
oh,
kids,
yes. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And like how they're not able to consent and blah 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 and like all that. So for this episode, we were kind of going back and forth. We agreed on bringing up the topic of gender or society's expectations when it comes to gender or like sex, right? Sex and
Mm-hmm.
baby, as far as it starts from gender reveals to, the baby clothes. Is it pink? Is it blue? Is it this? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then obviously how that progresses and how that can affect, you know, as your child is growing up, like, oh, you don't play with trucks, you play with Barbies, or you play with this. And just to see like the shift that we're going into now, where it's fully acceptable to not go into either one of those boxes. And when
Mm-hmm.
we were growing up, it was you were either in this box or that box. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's still people that believe in just those two boxes, which is part of, the big debate right now. Um, and so yeah, that's what we're gonna try and highlight today. Um, and we're in different stages. Always important to highlight that. I'm in a different stage with Derek than you are with Milo and Sienna.
Mm-hmm.
So you get you can actually have a conversation with Sienna about certain things, and
Yeah.
even Milo too, where
Yeah.
they understand the concept of boy like, girl like,
Mm-hmm.
pink, blue, trucks, Barbies, things like that. So I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Look at that,
And
dumping it on me.
because I feel like, what am I gonna say? But I mean, I can easily talk about right now. You know what? Fine. I'll take the lead on this. Fine.
But
Um,
I do want to say to our viewers and our listeners that just to remember, these are our thoughts and our views as we see it now
right,
in the exact moment we are in the stage we are with our children. So
right,
it doesn't mean that it applies to everyone or, you have to agree with it. Okay.
right. Yeah, yeah. And our kids. Derek is a year and a half. Milo is about to be 3, right?
Yeah.
And Sienna is about
Gonna
to
be
be
6.
6,
6.
about to be 6.
Yeah.
So they're still at a very young phase. It's not like we're talking about preteen or teenage years where
Mhm.
you're having these conversations, because it's even things that are being brought up in school, right? They're
Mhm.
taking sex ed and all that stuff. So yeah, so
Oh my
I'll
God, don't
go.
even get me started on the sex ed thing.
Well, are
That
they
gets me
doing
upset because
what?
they need sex education because you ask people basic questions. It doesn't have to be about any birds and the bees or any of that stuff.
Yeah,
You ask a boy what's menstruation, they have no idea.
yeah, yeah.
It's almost like it's a fantasy or something.
Uh,
Sex education is needed. They
I
need to
mean,
know. They need to
let's
know to
let's
be
be honest.
functioning humans.
There are some adult men that are like, well, you're like, what's menstruation? They're like, you bleed, but from where? Where do you bleed from? And like they have no idea where
Yeah,
you
I know.
actually bleed from,
Yeah.
right? Or like what that process actually means. And there are some, and I was guilty of that too. I was led to believe throughout my whole entire adolescent years, and I would say it wasn't until my early 20s, I thought you could get pregnant always. Like you were always at risk of getting pregnant. And that comes from the fear, right? Like
Hmm.
I grew up, I'm going to put myself there. I grew up in a way of, you don't have sex. You don't, like, there was no education behind it aside from what I learned in school, which wasn't even that deep into it. It was just like textbook biology, sperm, egg, they meet.
Hmm.
That's how a baby is created,
Hmm.
whatever, right? Not the actual act of how that happens.
Mhm.
Um, so I just remember like growing up with the fear of if you have sex, you're gonna automatically get pregnant. Like there
Mhm.
is no time of the month. Like I now know like there's certain times in the month that you're fertile and that you're not fertile.
Mhm.
Like it's not just you're gonna have sex and you don't use protection and then whatever. So I don't know. Where I'm going with this is that there's still adults that may
I
not
know.
may not even know these things. And it's because it's very big on fear based because you're trying to prevent your child from having premarital sex or sex at a young age and all these other things. So I do agree. I think that sex ed should be something that's taught in schools. Um,
Yeah.
when the time is right. That's
Mhm.
what I'm gonna. That's what I'm gonna say.
Did
When
I
the
tell
time is
yeah,
right.
I had sex ed in, I wanna say ninth grade, ninth or 10th
Yeah.
grade.
Okay. So
They did
that's like
teach
high
it.
school.
Yeah, they did teach it. Ninth or 10th grade, we had that sex education class. And then in college, I decided to take an extra course of human sexual behaviors, like an actual psychology course, I think it was.
Okay.
So I did do extra on that one. I took that one with my friend just for, I don't know. We were like, let's go, let's do it. And we
So
learned
how
so much on that one.
so how many of those in that course specifically did you learn about gender roles or like specific
I'm trying to remember like sex
thoughts?
education in general. I don't think they really talk to us about gender roles because I think that's kind of a thing that's already ingrained with us when we were born, right? Like it's either when you're a boy, you play with trucks and cars, and you're a girl, you do Barbies,
Mm-hmm.
dolls, and you
Yeah.
tend to go for pink,
Yeah.
which I hated.
But it's a matter of what came first, right? And that's the debate. Is it, just a learned behavior, or is it truly that we are like innately just drawn as female? Are we
Mhm.
just drawn to the pink? Are we drawn to the Barbie dolls?
I think
No,
it could
we're
be
not.
both. I mean,
Really?
it could be
You
a little
think
bit of
so?
both where it's we're pushed to it, but there's people that might like that in general. Like I used to like playing with Barbie dolls, but Sienna doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean she likes women or, like she's going to be a guy when she grows up. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it depends on what you like.
I
So
agree.
so it's a little bit of both. You kind of are geared to that because of what people expect from the role, and
Yeah.
then but there's also stuff that you like,
Yeah.
so you go to that.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, yes. I just
Hmm.
still feel like I was conditioned
Yeah,
to
I mean,
like
our
that's
parents are like
yeah, well, old school
super old
Latinos,
school.
like
Yeah.
what else are you gonna get?
Boys don't cry.
It doesn't get any more machismo than,
Yeah.
Latin America and those roles, right?
Mhm.
So as a woman, and like, we're not really going in order here right now, but you just reminded me, and I know I mentioned this before because
Mhm.
I remember like, yeah, this is how I knew like I was gonna be, who I am. I remember my dad when I was like 7 or so, he would be like, you got to learn how to cook and clean and iron and all that so you can be a good partner to your husband, so you can find a good
Mhm.
husband. Like all these things. It's like, who says that to a
Mhm.
7-year-old? Like, why is that like the first thought that you think is one appropriate and two for you to limit that little girl's goals and ambition in life where you're
Mhm.
telling her what she should strive out of life to get is to be a good wife, right? And
Yeah.
to be a good wife, it means you need to learn how to cook and clean and tend to somebody else, right?
Mhm.
And that's your goal and priority in life. How absurd is this? I
Mhm.
mean, I cook and clean and I do all these things and I definitely have my share in the house, but Tom does that too. You
Mhm.
know, he doesn't cook. We're not doing that. But he'll do the dishes,
Mhm.
and we're very balanced. Like
Mhm.
we meet each other halfway, and there's just certain things that I'm better at than he is, and vice versa. I
Mhm.
had him install all like the little plugs. I'm not messing with the electricity.
Mhm.
No, I'm not doing that. But if you look at it from the outside, that's very like, oh, is that because he's the man? No, we both
Mhm.
take out the trash. We both do the recycling. It's just a matter of I'm tired. You do it. Or like,
Mhm.
I see it
Mhm.
piling up. We're just gonna do it without having to be asked. Um, but yeah, it's just things like that
But
where
I'm trying to
from a
think,
little
like,
kid.
just to make you think a little bit, if we were actually in the 1950s, do you think you would be a housewife?
Well, I mean, if I
I
were,
think it's just because we're in 2023 and this is where we are gearing to, or where everyone's equal
yeah,
kind of
it's different.
situation. Yeah.
But then that's also country. Well, okay, 1950s, yes, you
Yeah.
would. There's not a lot of. First of all, there were not a lot of positions for
I
women
know.
to
For
begin
women, I
with,
know.
unless you wanted to be a
Secretaries.
secretary or
Yeah.
a nurse or what's another? There was another one like is a stenographer.
Mhm. Mhm. That's right.
And then
Like
there
a court
was
stenographer.
another one that was like a very common one for women, and I'm forgetting right now. But your options were limited. Like,
Mhm.
and then add on to that a woman of color, even
Mhm.
more limited, right? So
Mhm.
it was kind of like one of those things where I guess your goal in life to kind of elevate yourself, you would have to strive, right, to be a housewife, to
Mhm.
be a wife to a man that had a really good job and like was successful and all that stuff. So yeah, if you take it back, you know, what is
I
that now?
I think
60,
I'm
70
trying
like
to think like
years
what
ago?
exactly I'm trying to tell you here. It's kind of like like the 1950s thing. I'm trying to say it's just a society thing that's changing.
Yeah.
Society itself is shifting. So again, we're following the societal
Yeah.
roles
Like
of what we should be
like
now.
what's acceptable,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. But that's what I'm saying. Like I guess that is what the norm would be.
Mhm.
The outsider, like the
Mhm.
woman that would not aim for that was considered weird and
Mhm.
different and something's wrong with her, right? You
Mhm.
know how many women I remember in psychology class I learned that like housewives were put on just medication for like depression and all these
Yeah,
other
because they weren't
things.
happy with.
They
Mhm.
weren't happy and all these male doctors and all these husbands
Mhm.
were like, fix her. I don't know why she's not happy. She has everything in life. But the fact, what they realize is it's because she wasn't living her like dreams and her goals and she didn't have any ambitions or any of that stuff. The human spirit, like itself, will
Mhm.
just like crumble. But then there are some women that they're okay, right, with that stage and striving for those things. And that's okay too.
Mhm.
But to think that that's all that you can do and not have anything else as an option, I think that's the problem.
Mhm.
You choosing to go down that route, that's fine because that's your choice, right? That's what you wanted to do. But the fact that there wasn't another option, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a problem. But then now, that's, 70 years ago at this point, right? Did I do the math right? I think so. 73 years ago, right? If you go to the exact 50. But
Yep.
point is, now, like you said, we've transitioned and we're going into all these different stages of what's
Mhm.
acceptable, right, by
Mhm.
society. But then you still have the pushback from others. Um, there's still people that are very traditional, very stuck in like old school ways. And I respect everybody in their opinion and what they want to do. But I just feel like just because that's how we've always done it doesn't
Doesn't
mean
mean it
that's the right
works.
way,
Mhm.
right? And we've learned through research that there are just certain things that we've traditionally done as a society that we realized like, oh, wow, why were we doing that? That's terrible. Like we should
Mhm.
try and change that up. But do you think, and like since you brought up the 1950s, do you think that now in 2023 that we're pushing too far into
For
the
cer
gender roles and like the division and like the blurring of the genders and the sex and all of that?
I'm like I was telling you this before, like genders is either you're male or female. You either got a penis or a vagina or both. Whoever, has
Yeah.
that. But it's like you
Well,
identify,
physically,
and then what
yes.
you
You're
identify is totally something different. And I'll respect it, but like
physically, you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you're talking about physically, you're either male
physically
or
you're either
female,
a male
or
or female
you
because I
have
think
both
that's
genitalia.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's the major thing here because I feel like they're like, oh, you can either be male or female, but that's just your sex, what you're born with,
you're
not what you
physical.
yeah, and not
Right.
what you identify. What you
Right.
identify is totally different with, and like I said, I don't care what you identify with. I could call you he, she, them, they, whatever. I'll respect it. It's
Yeah.
just I think it's gotten out of control, completely out of control, where
So
people are like, well, I don't want to service so and so because they identify as they.
yeah.
Who cares? That's
Like
not
yeah.
your problem, not your life.
Yeah.
I think
Like what is it doing to you in your life for you to address
I'm
somebody
like,
by the pronoun that they want to be addressed by?
it's like whatever. That's at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you have to respect each other
Right.
for whatever it is. It's not like they're forcing you to live their life.
Right.
I don't know. Like I never understood that because I see that like even like I hate to say this, but my dad sometimes says like really nasty things come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, because he's like he's against all that. He's very old school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just zone him out because I'm just like, I can't deal with you. I don't want to talk to you about this. This is ridiculous because you're not
Yeah.
going to change your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not bothering you. How is this affecting you
Yeah.
personally? Like, it's not.
Yeah. It's not. Not in any way. Um, but it's funny that you mentioned like your dad. So my mom, so obviously like my grandfather when he was around, I remember like he would make certain comments, right? Because he's very old school military and DR, like, he has a way of doing things. My mom obviously grew up under that same idea and all that stuff. But now, like, we'll watch the news and watch TV, and she's like, "Ah, mira, mira, interesante." Like, she'll like, mira cómo la cosa han cambiado, right?
Hmm.
But she won't, like, she doesn't say it in a negative way. She's just more like, wow, like, look at how far we've come when it
Hmm.
comes to identity and just you can be who you want to be.
Hmm.
And that's okay. And I think that there's it doesn't have to be an ugly thing, but I think that there's certain people that make it ugly
Yeah.
in the way that there's just so much hate tied to old ideas, old traditions, and all of that stuff. Where if you go against it, and it's also tied to religion, obviously, but if you go against it in any way, then you're attacking somebody else's belief. That's
Hmm.
the theory for some. And I'm like, and like I was talking to my mom about it, and she's like, a mí no me importa. Si ellos quieren hacer lo que ellos hacen, ¿cómo eso me afecta a mí? And like
Hmm.
to hear her say that was like, oh my gosh, she gets it. Like she
Hmm.
gets it. And I didn't have to have like a debate with her
Yeah.
about it, and that was just like nice. Cause like I remember a time when I was younger where she'd be like, ay, mira, like about other things like hairstyle, right? Like she would comment like if I wanted to get cornrows, like I definitely wore cornrows like in high school and junior high and all that stuff. She's like, wow, you gotta blow dry your hair and make it straight and like all that stuff, right? And she would make comments about that. Like, that's not proper how a woman should look. That's not
Hmm.
how a lady should look and appear and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And now she's over here like, sí, que dejen que la gente haga lo que ellos quieran. ¿A quién le va a molestar? Like, she's so like accepting. Like, it's like
Hmm.
seeing your parent as a parent, but then seeing them as a grandparent. You're like, where was that person that's giving them candy and letting my kids do whatever they want versus
Hmm.
the parent that like used to beat the crap out of them? What happened?
Yeah.
you know? But it's just nice to see, and that's rare because I do know my grandmother doesn't like feel the same way. My grandmother's probably like she doesn't get it. Like she'll see it, she doesn't understand it. Um,
Hmm.
but I think that that's also tied to the fact that in the Latino community, and I don't know about your experience, I think it always ties into mental like health, right?
Hmm.
Like if like me telling my mom I had depression or anxiety and all that stuff to them, it's like, oh, stop haciéndote la loca, like stop pretending,
Hmm.
like get
Hmm.
over
Hmm.
it, suck
Yeah.
it up and just move on. But these are real issues, right? So if I tell you that I don't feel comfortable in my body. And I'm
Hmm.
trying to explain to you that it's more than a physical, it's a mental, emotional thing for me. I think that it's harder to kind of get through people that are so, and this is for lack of a better word, like ignorant when it comes to the effects of your mental health and
Mhm.
how that can be separate from what you look like versus how you mentally uh, identify and
Yeah.
feel.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the challenge when it comes to old school, at least Latinos from my experience. I don't
Mhm.
know if like, I don't know how your mom, like maybe your mom is like more accepting. Like, have you spoken to her about like like the identity stuff and all of that or no?
I'm trying to think. Well, my cousin's gay,
Okay.
so on her side of the family. So she was like always, I always used to send him my clothes
Okay.
all the time, and he used to be like wearing my stuff. So, I don't think she's ever had an issue with any of them. Maybe in the back of her mind, she would say stuff, because that's
Yeah.
how she is. But
But
I
she's
don't.
accepting.
She's like whatever. It doesn't affect me. Again, she's
Yeah.
just like, "Mm,
Yeah.
that's fine."
Yeah. I mean, again,
Because
like you
she's never
said.
been like that. But then there's always like the little comments or the stuff that they say, like, when Sienna was little, that's like, oh, why don't you buy her a dollhouse? Or like they would always buy her dollhouses, little dolls. She
Yeah.
never played with any of that stuff
Yeah.
like as much. And then she would be like, oh, why don't you buy her a stroller for her dolls? And I'm like, I don't want a stroller for her dolls. She doesn't want one. Like she
Yeah.
hasn't asked me for one. And funny, she just bought one now, like last week when we
Your
went
mom?
out. No,
Oh, Sienna?
Sienna was like, I
Oh,
want a stroller. She
yeah.
asked for it herself. It's just like you gotta just let them figure out what they like,
Yeah.
what they want.
But she
Don't
plays with
don't like
trucks
shove
and
stuff.
things like that too, right?
Yeah, don't. But it also is because it's here,
Because,
because
yeah,
Milo
Milo.
loves cars
Cars
and
and
trucks and
trucks.
all that stuff. So he's all about that stuff. So
Trying to
she'll play
order
with
cars and
him,
trucks from your
and he
Amazon.
and he's and he's going around with the stroller too, giving his trucks a
Yeah.
stroll. He's
But
like,
see, so that's the thing. So in the old school way, right? Like if my
hmm
dad were to see that, I know that he would be like, take the stroller away. That doesn't,
yeah,
that's not for boys.
hmm
You give it to Sienna, right? Like, how do you and Vic navigate that?
no one's done that to us yet or said
Okay.
anything. So I
Okay.
wouldn't know how to tell you, but I'm sure somebody's gonna get a big bad word or two coming in their direction if they ever say anything stupid. It's like
You
if that's
take the
what he
stroller,
wants.
you hit him with
Yeah, I know.
it.
It's like it's if that's what they want to play with, that's what they want to play with. Like, what
Yeah.
am I supposed to tell you? I have a picture of Milo. Sienna left her pajamas out
Hmm.
the other day while she was in school, and he was like, "I miss my sister. Can I wear her pajamas?" And he
Oh,
walked around in her pajamas most of the
that is
day.
so
So I'm
cute.
like, what am I? You know,
That's
you just gotta let
sweet.
them be kids, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
people think about it way too much. It's just
Well,
just
we're
let them be
projecting
kids.
our own, and
Fears
I
and
know I've said it before. Yes,
biases
we
too.
are the ones that are protecting our children. It's our
Mhm.
job to do that. I
Mhm.
understand that. But I feel like without saying, "Oh, we're woke or we're this or we're that," I think it's important to say, "Hey, I maybe shouldn't instill my old, you know, at a date like beliefs and let my
Mhm.
child decide
Mhm.
whatever it is that they want to play with, whatever color it is that they want to wear, what kind of clothes they want to wear, right? Whether
Mhm.
if they see me paint my nails, which I never do, if they wanted to paint their nails, things
Mhm.
like that, where I know that that's a huge one too,
Mhm.
seeing little boys with their nails painted. Or
Milo asked me to paint his nails the other day. He said,
yeah.
"Can you do my toes too? Do my toes too?" I was like, "Sure. What color do you want?" He said, "Like yours." So I
What
did his
color
like
was
his.
that?
It was pink. It was like big. So I just did his like big toe because obviously his little ones don't. You can't really
Yeah,
even get
there's no
in
nail
there.
there.
And I'm like, here, fine.
The
And it
little
peeled off
nubs.
anyway because they peel it off. I don't know about you, but I do my nails and he sits there and he starts doing this
Yeah, no, I
and
don't
peels
paint
them
my
off.
nails. Yeah,
So
for
I don't
part
do
of
my
that
hand
reason.
nails.
Well, it's too much maintenance. I'm very low maintenance. If you haven't noticed, I'm very low maintenance. Like occasionally I'll like dress up and stuff to because I like that. I do
Mhm.
like so that's the thing. I love dresses, I love skirts, I love all of these things, but I grew up being put into like that box so much that when I had the option to dress myself and like buy things myself, I was so anti dresses, so anti skirts because I grew up only in that and like
And those
headbands,
fluffy
the
things, those
fluffy, yeah, all of it, all of it. The shoes
Yeah.
were like patent leather with like a little
Yes,
bow. I
yes,
think we all had that.
yes.
That's like a Latino, like, what is it, rite of passage, like whatever. Like you had to have those
Oh
shoes with
man,
a little
yeah.
tiny heel.
Mhm.
Um, and so I grew up like very anti all of that stuff. But then I was like, but I like it. Like I like getting a nice pleated skirt and like twirling in it. And I like wearing a nice dress and heels and all that stuff. And so then I finally like allowed myself to say, like, oh no, it's not just because I was conditioned for it. I actually like these things. And I
Mhm.
also like the oversized crop sweaters and the leggings and the sweatpants and all of these things. You can like all of that and not be put in a box. And I think that's what I love the most
Mhm.
of this time that we're in right now. You can wear crop tops
Whatever you
as
want.
a guy, which,
Yeah.
first of all, do you look at Saved by the Bell back in the day? You know, AC Slater was wearing crop tops
I know, I
and
saw
he was
remember
the
that.
most masculine, quote unquote, masculine
Yeah.
jock type
Mhm.
guy in that time frame, right? So, like,
Mhm.
you'll see things like that, and I'm like, but we used to do that, right? We used to like not bat an eye to that stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then you had people that were in the music industry, like guys that would paint their nails, and it was
Mhm.
totally fine, right?
Yeah.
Um, but no, back to like the upbringing. Like I just remember even the gender reveals, right? We have gender reveals. That's the
Mhm.
thing, right? And I know we brought it up last time because we're like, would it be a thing if not for social media?
Mhm.
Yeah, because sometimes people, I just don't think it'll be that elaborate. But with the gender reveal, what's usually the colors that go off?
It's either blue
Pink or blue,
or
right?
blue, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So pink or blue. And then that right there from the very beginning, like you're already setting an expectation either this way or that way,
Mhm.
right? Um, and then it turns into your registry or the clothes that you're getting or the type of toys that you're, signing up for, birthday
Mhm.
gifts and things of that sort. Um, I remember putting a lot of neutrals
Yeah, me
in
too.
things, but I like neutrals. I like grays and
Mhm.
yellows and olives and sage color. And Tom's like, all those colors are boring. Like it wasn't to him. It wasn't about like gender, but to
Mhm.
him it was more like get some get some blue, get some red, get this and that. Like he's like sage, olive, like that's boring. But then I had other people that were like, "Oh, like can I get you blue things? Can I get you this?" Like they would ask me. I'm like, "Yeah, you can get whatever you want."
Mhm.
I just
Mhm.
know that if I have my registry, like
Yeah.
that's what I want. Right? That's what I like.
Mhm.
And as far as toys go, like the toys I get are gender neutral,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
you
I try
know?
to do the best I could too with that.
Yeah.
Because they are definitely toys that were just, like, either pink, pink, pink,
Yeah.
or
Pink
blue
and
or
glitter.
green or
It's
something. Yeah,
pink,
and I'm
glitter,
like,
and purple, like
but
for
my thought
girls.
always was if I had a boy after seeing, I'm like, why would I have this? And I was just like, did we just do one color where I can it goes with everything and just whatever. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to go for. I never even thought about it as a boy or girl thing,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Only till because I'm like, well, if it could be a boy, and then they're gonna be like, oh, because I know my dad will be like, why is he playing with the pink stuff? And
Gotcha.
then, and
Even the color is an issue. The
it's like,
cut.
yeah, I'm like, okay. So I just did whatever. So because if it could have been a boy or a girl after Sienna, so it doesn't matter. I was just
Yeah.
like,
You just reminded me. So like I remember if you watch like old school shows from the 90s,
mm-hmm,
you would see like blatantly they would say things and I'm trying to remember, I don't know if it wouldn't be Full House, but it was like one of those shows that they would be like, "Oh, like they corrected the kid like the kid was playing with Barbies or like, dolls and they were like, "Oh no, like you don't play with that." And like you would see it like in our
oh yeah,
regular
yeah, yeah, that's
shows
right. They would do it.
where they
Mm-hmm,
would be like, no, here's a truck, or here's, Transformer or
mm-hmm,
Batman or
mm-hmm,
whatever. Like, what do you want to dress up as for Halloween? And they
mm-hmm,
would try and steer the conversation towards something that was at the time considered gender sex appropriate, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, and so I see things like that and I'm like, I mean, Derek gets gifts all the time where it's usually the same thing. It's usually a truck. It's usually building blocks, which I feel like are gender neutral. But then there's like cars and like more toys geared towards a boy, right?
Mhm.
But I usually always, the things that I buy him are always like gender neutral. But I don't know, if he wants a doll for out and he sees a doll, like he has a doll that he sleeps with.
Mhm.
Um, we named him Dylan. That was
Mhm.
like that was like when he was like a couple of months old. And I remember when we opened up the box because it was the Love Every toys. So it
Mhm.
comes, like a preset like toy thing. And Tom was like, a doll came in it? That's weird. And I was like, why is that weird? And like we had the conversation of that. He's like, I don't know. He's like, just a doll. And I was like, yeah, it's a doll. And like I think
Mhm.
throughout that like back and forth, he like also connected the fact that he's like, oh, that isn't weird actually. I was like, why?
Mhm.
Because it's a boy, and he's getting a little doll that he loves very much. He's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not weird. Whatever. He's like, and like he just like shrugs it off.
Mhm.
But that was like one of the times that like he brought something up like that. But he sleeps
Mhm.
with that doll. He loves that doll. He says he calls it a baby.
Yeah.
So that's his
Oh.
baby. And he'll hold the baby and he'll feed the baby. um, and those are all things that I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing to show
Yeah.
young boys, to show them how to care for something, to be gentle, to show them love and affection. I think that's a good thing. That might be one of the things that we were lacking before when we were raising all these like ignorant
Barbaric
assholes.
guys.
No, there's some good guys, but it's just all of that. Like, why is it that we put male into this box and female into this box?
Mhm.
And that turns into, like me talking about that, it turns into the emotional aspect of it. What emotions are acceptable for a man to display?
Mhm.
Anger, rage, frustration, uh, impatience, and dominance, right? Like
Mhm.
showing he's the alpha and all that stuff. And for women, what does it usually fall under? Docile, like quiet, loving, caring, emotional. And it's usually
Mhm.
emotional because the guy can be emotional, but it has to be just frustration, anger, that type of emotion. Women have to be emotional in the sense that they're sentimental and
Mhm.
they're, crying and this and that, whatever type of thing. And I think that that stems from also being a kid. Like when a kid falls or a little girl falls, you're, I've seen with when it's a little girl, it's like, oh my God, like, are you okay? Like, but when it's a little boy that falls, it's like, you're fine. You're good. Like, just get right back up. You're good. Have you
Mhm.
noticed things like that?
Even I tend to do that sometimes. I find with
Okay.
Milo because he's a big crier, like big crier. Like he makes a big production when it's like when he just stumbles or something. Like,
Yeah.
but you could tell because he does it to get attention.
Yeah. Like he'll
And
look around
because I
or,
usually just go and I'm like, oh my God, and he comes over to me and I give him a hug. I rub his back, but sometimes I'm just like, oh, you're okay. Let's go, keep
yeah.
walking. But I used to try to do that with Sienna too
Okay.
when she was little because I find like yeah because my mom was like that with us and my
Okay.
dad and it was like ooh, and so I'm super terrified of trying anything new because I'm scared that I'm gonna get hurt. And I'm like, I don't want that for you. I don't want to be
Yeah.
that on top of you all the time. So I used to be like, all right, let's go, get up, you're fine, shake it out.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do with both of them.
Unless you see that they're seriously hurt,
Yeah,
of
no,
course. Yeah.
obviously. No. He likes his cuddles, so I still give him his cuddles. Vic
Aw.
makes fun of him because, he's like, You're such a mama's boy.
You
But I'm
see?
like, he
But
likes
then
it.
there's,
Like
of
I was like,
course.
what am I supposed to do? I can't be like, no, go away.
Yeah. No, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to give
So
them love and affection.
hmm
Right.
so I give him
Um,
hugs and all the time and he's fine. I think he's gonna be great. I just,
well, of course. Look at mom and dad, and of course he's going to be great. But you have that love and affection. I was talking to one of my coworkers and we were just talking about parenting. He doesn't have kids and he's Dominican. And he was like, because the new age of parenting is different from how I grew up. Like, we were like joking about it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, it's just, I feel like, I don't know, it's like softer generation that's being raised. And I was like, what does that mean? What? Because I told him how I am with Derek. And I was
hmm
like, because I'm giving him love and affection and cuddles and teaching him that he's secure in life, that he has people that are there watching him, as opposed to ven, párate de aquí, whatever, as opposed to like the usual get, like stop making a big production out of
Mhm.
the emotion that you're feeling. I actually
Mhm.
let him feel things. And so I told him, I was like, there's actually studies that show that the more loving and the more attentive you are in that way, that the more secure of an adult that child will
Yeah.
grow up to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And I was telling him, well, then he's like, oh, he was like, I didn't know that. And I was like, yeah, I was like, there's nothing wrong with how I, I try to correct it. I was like, listen, we were raised in a different way because him and I were raised similarly with how we were disciplined and all that stuff, right? I said, but that doesn't mean all of it was wrong, but that also doesn't mean that all of it was correct. And
Mhm.
so we've taken that chancla culture and like all of that stuff, and we said, oh, that actually does a lot of damage. Like there's research to support that. So let's not do that and let's find a better way. And
Mhm.
so I just thought it was funny how he was just very like, nah, he has to be tough and he has to be blah, blah, blah. I was like, he's going to be tough and he's going to be confident. He's not going to be an insecure man, and he's going
Mhm.
to be a confident, good human being to the rest of society. And whoever of a partner, Tom and I will always say that because Tom will be like, oh, the ladies are going to love you. I was like, or the boys, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is that he decides to, they, them, whatever he decides to go into. And Tom's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you know what I mean. And I was like, yeah, but it's that automatic, like, oh yeah, he's gonna be find a woman or whatever it is, right? Like
Mhm.
it could be whoever he wants to be, right? And that's not up for that shouldn't be our decision when the time comes. That
Mhm.
should be like whatever it is that he wants to do with his life. But anyway, point is, when I was talking to my coworker, I was just explaining all the studies and all that, and I can see the switch in his brain of, oh, that makes sense. Now I
Mhm.
understand why. But, he means well. It wasn't like in a negative way.
Mhm.
But I do, I think what he was trying to get at too was he was like how everybody gets a medal, even if
Oh,
like you
yeah, we talk
fail
about that all the
and like
time.
you don't
Everybody gets some.
succeed. Everybody gets a medal, everybody gets a sticker, a golden star for participation and all stuff. I
Mhm.
do, I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it. I think because you're not letting the kids strive for something
Yeah,
or work hard enough to achieve something.
yeah,
And at the end, it's like, because I remember we never had participation stuff.
okay,
And I worked very hard in school and I became the salutatorian of my elementary school class.
okay,
And it felt great. I got a
yeah.
little medal and everything, and I gave a speech for my graduation. So
Aw.
that it's nice to have something you could strive for. That's how you make I'm trying to find like the right wording for this, but like this is how you round out the person that you become. Like
Yeah.
cuz then like I even
Because
with my
then you're going to think
sister.
that being mediocre is acceptable and is
Yeah, because
enough.
my sister she's a high school math teacher, and
Okay.
she sees this a lot, and I feel bad because she's like always trying to make her students work hard and strive to do something. But it's like they basically told one of her students like, "All right, you don't even need this class to pass because you're gonna get a pass regardless or whatever,"
What?
and because they have to pass everyone some way
Yeah.
or the other. It's like a whole thing. Oh, you got to pass these kids anyway. So it's
But
like
it's math. You need to know
exactly. So
math.
she's like, what's the point? So basically, her kids, some of them have checked out. They're like, well, you're going to pass me anyway, so I'm not doing any of the work.
Oh, man.
What's the point of that? When you get to the real world, this is the thought and process you're going to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
And
not going to do anything with
the
yourself.
real world does not work that way.
No. And even
Yeah.
even if they don't go to college, because I told her, I was like, when they go to college, they're going to just fail out of all their classes because if you don't go with that mentality, which I failed the first semester. I could tell you I failed like two of my classes.
Yeah.
And I felt like shit because it's like you got to have that drive within you to be able to carry out your own studies, do your own thing
Yeah.
because you're on your own there.
Yeah.
No one's behind you doing, you got to do your work. You got to do this, you
Yeah.
got to do that. So that whole participation thing with giving everybody trophies, not the best idea. I get it because you want to like tell everybody, "Oh, you all doing a good job," but there's other ways of going about
I think so. Yeah, I agree. I
that.
agree. But I think that when you condition a child from early on, like for example, if Derek's trying to like put a puzzle piece in and it's not working, and I'm doing it for him, like let's say I
Mhm.
choose to do it for him and fix it, and I don't allow him to get frustrated to try and
Mhm.
figure it out. then he's just going to depend on me every time to do it for him. Right. And then this is an extreme thought, but if he continuously goes throughout his life with people around him as adults doing things for him and not letting him struggle a little bit to try and
Mhm.
figure it out, use his brain, he's going to grow up to be an adult that expects everything to be done for him and
Mhm.
expects everything to just be, here you go. Or it's
Mhm.
okay. Don't worry about it. Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to figure that out. Don't stress out over it. We can do it for you. But that's not the real world,
Mhm.
you know? And I feel like I'm doing him a disservice if I were to do that, right? And like say good job when he didn't actually put the blocks where they should be going, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so I agree. I agree with the whole participation
All right.
trophy
We
thing.
went way across
Yeah,
the
yeah,
topic
yeah.
today,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But it's all a part of it though. It's
yeah,
all a part of it. But go ahead, go ahead. Because I know I brought up like gender reveals and
the
the
gender reveals
registry
and the
and all that stuff and the
registry,
colors
the
and the
colors.
toys. What else would you say is like a common thing that's
But like
like
just in general, just shaking the thought out of your own head because even us, we grew up that way. So it's even sometimes you do things where like,
mhm,
oh wait, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, but it's like no, you should do what you want to do.
yeah.
Like the kids for me, they like helping me in the kitchen. I find that Milo really likes it. Like he's
Yeah.
just like, "Mom, can I help? Can I help?" And I'm like,
Oh.
"Okay, sure." So I got him like little knife set, serrated
Yeah.
knife set, and he's like cutting and chopping up stuff. So we have
Oh.
all this messed up food in the meals, but
Yeah.
it's because he's trying to learn how to cut.
That's
So I let
cool.
him help out there. Sienna likes to cut and help out too, but she's more of the like when she comes home, she just wants to relax and chill out
Yeah.
after school. So Milo's usually the one helping in the kitchen. And I don't see anything wrong with it because those are life skills, you know?
Yeah.
They're going to need
Those
to
are
know
life
how
skills.
to cook. And that's another thing that I think we're missing from our education. Life skills. We don't get
Yeah.
taught how do you balance your books at,
Yeah.
people don't know how to do any of that stuff sometimes.
How do
So,
you do your taxes? How do
yeah.
you, like it's just a
It's
lot.
just it's stuff that everyone needs to know regardless of
Yeah.
whether you're male or female.
You should learn how to clean after yourself, how to wash
Mhm.
your clothes, how to cook for yourself, all of these
Mhm.
things. I
It's
get it.
just like we're just raising these dumb people that are like, "Well, I'm gonna get a wife and she's gonna do everything for me." No, that's not how it works. Because what if she doesn't know how to do your laundry?
Yeah. Yeah. Or, what if you don't find a wife?
Mhm.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You
So
know?
you have to learn how to do things.
Um yeah, no, it's obviously it was a different time, right? When you go back to like the 50s and all that stuff, it was a different time. Women, again, like I said, they didn't have the opportunity to just go work and all that. Like there were certain opportunities, but very limited. So that was the option. Now, also think of the fact that you didn't have to split the household duties because you had her there. You had the woman
Mhm.
there in the house. That was her job. Now, both, like, you think it's possible. It's very rare to be able to live in places like New York City, San Francisco, like Miami, like on a one salary income to provide for a household. Like
Yeah.
it's even as an individual, like I have friends of mine that they're making six figures and they struggle. They struggle on their own because it's a one like single house income, right?
Mhm.
And so when you think about that and then you add kids to the mix, that's even more expenses. So now you have a husband and wife or a partner and partner that both have to go work. So both people have to learn how to cook, clean, organize, do all this stuff. There is no more division of labor and gender roles like, oh no, you do this. I'm the woman. I don't do that. Like, I'm the man. You don't. So I think that's also what switched. Like,
Mhm.
both people have had to start to work in order to survive, depending on where you live, obviously. Um, but it is a privilege when you don't have to do that. Um, but that's definitely, I think, a factor for us. But with us, like Tom says, like what you says, it's survival skills.
Mhm.
Learning how to take care after yourself. He's like, you're not my mother. Like he'll say, he's like, you're not my mother. I don't expect you to like do all that stuff. But that's specifically to the laundry folding, right?
Mhm.
Because he'll try to fold the laundry. And I'm like, just give it to me. Just leave it there. Leave it there. I'll do it. He's like, I could do it. It's like, you can, but I don't want you to.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, it's interesting. And I also think just the emotional aspect of it all too. Like, what does it mean to be a man or a woman, a boy, a girl? It's different, you know? Like, early on, I was taught that girls were the chatty ones, they were
Mhm.
the gossipy ones, the clicky ones, and boys were just boys. They were more
Oh,
athletic,
no. Not true.
and, you know, awesome. Boys are very clicky.
Oh
Boys
my
can
god.
be very, you know, gossipy and chatty too. But
Mhm.
those were all descriptions that would be thrown into these boxes.
Yeah.
But then again, that doesn't exist anymore so much with society as the way that it's going, like the transition of everything, because we're realizing, oh, like, what if I don't identify as this and I don't identify as that?
Mhm.
I'm a blend of all of this. So, what box do I fit in?
Mhm.
So, how do you navigate that? Like, how, like, I think about that too. Like, what if Derek is just like, oh, like, I feel more drawn to this and I feel more drawn to not identify necessarily as a female, but in the sense of to the outside society, he would be categorized into all that. Like we've talked about it, and we're like, well, we're gonna allow him to play and identify with whatever it is, just no permanent decisions. Like,
Mhm.
you know, because there's certain things that you can go and do as a child, like in like medically, that will be a permanent decision. Like that,
Mhm.
I don't feel comfortable doing.
Mhm.
I'll let Derek decide if the time comes when he's an adult. He can go ahead and make that decision for himself. But how do you feel about like
I mean,
this?
if she ever came to if either one of my kids came and told me something, I would just be like, "Well, that's who you are. That's just who you are.
Yeah,
I can't change that. If that's what you like, it's fine."
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's all you can really say or do to that. I mean, you can't force them to change, and that's just how they are. It's within them,
yeah. It's
yeah,
how they feel comfortable.
and that's fine. Because I mean, I get questions all the time, like, who was it? Sienna's classmate has two moms, and
Okay.
she's like, "Mom, why does she have two moms?" I'm like, "They just fell in love with each other,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "She has two moms. She's very lucky." I'm just like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. And she goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." I was like, "Yeah." And it's like we always laugh about that because what was it? Was it Vic that said something, or Sienna might have been the one who said like, "Oh, I want to marry my friend Haley," and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine." I was like, "Well, you let me know when you get older if it's gonna be a girl or a boy. Like, it's fine."
Yeah.
Because we always
Yeah.
say that it's like regardless, whatever. It doesn't matter to us. It's who you are. You're our
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, that's the innocence of a child,
Mhm.
like having that mind of, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, I remember being a kid and be like, oh my God, I love this. I love this person. Like, I want to be with her forever, right? That's my best friend.
Mhm.
And I just feel like now there's like so much, for some people, there's so much
They just it's like
extreme.
take it to the extreme. Yeah. It's like they
Yeah.
immediately react
It's
so
like, oh my God,
negatively.
no,
So I'm
no.
like,
Like, it's like, do
so
you
what?
understand? Like, we're just kids. Like,
Mhm.
we don't look at it from the lens that adults look at it. Like they're not going to look at it from the lens that we're going to look at it through.
Mhm.
You know, it's a very innocent, like childlike way of thinking about love and who you care about and who makes you
Mhm.
feel happy.
Mhm.
What makes you feel happy? How
Mhm.
comfortable you are in your skin. Um, but I do believe also that as parents, we like I want to filter out what my child is exposed to,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like I know that that's a topic of controversy now, but like drag shows being allowed in like elementary schools and things of that sort. I just feel like there's a time and a place for certain things,
Mhm.
and there's certain things that I feel I would want my child to be shielded from and exposed to,
Mhm.
depending on their age and what their knowledge and sorry, what their brain can handle and
Mhm.
I can explain to them. because
Mhm.
I can try and explain to them certain things, but they're not going to understand.
Yeah.
And it's all like fantasy land for kids, you know? Like, I remember telling my mom, like, I wanted to be a princess and a unicorn at the same, like, there's just certain things that in a kid's brain, it doesn't translate the same as an adult and vice
That's right.
versa.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are certain things that I would want to protect my child at a very young age from, just because I feel like it's not age appropriate. That's
Mhm.
all it is. Like, I wouldn't want my kid to walk or like be around naked, exposed people.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter how they identify, doesn't matter the gender or any of that stuff. I just feel like it shouldn't be something that they should be seeing, like
Mhm.
that my child should be seeing, I should
Mhm.
say. That's why there's such a thing as like restrictions when it comes to movies and shows and
Mhm.
all that, because it's known there are certain topics and certain things that you can't, like, a child can't wrap their brain around, like they
Mhm.
can't understand as much as we would explain it to them, it just doesn't translate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality still now to this day, but because there's so many agendas that are being pushed and
Yeah.
beliefs that people want to make it about, religion and corruption and this and that, and it's like, well, no, let's just get down to the biological sense of it. Their brain can't handle certain information that's going to be you're going to possibly expose them to.
Mhm.
And it's okay to say, no, I don't want my child to be exposed to that, because
Mhm.
I know that no matter what, they're not going to understand it.
Yeah, and not get attacked for it too, because
Right. And
people
not
are
get
so
attacked for
quick
it.
to
Yeah.
judge and say, "Well, then you're
A bigot, or
hater."
you're
Oh,
this, or you're
yeah,
that.
it's
And it's
like,
like, no.
no, it's just I'm just trying to protect my child.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Mhm.
Until they're at an age where I feel like I can sit down and actually explain to
Explain
them.
it, yeah, and they'll
Like, oh yeah,
understand. Yeah,
like this is how that person expresses themselves,
yeah.
you
Mhm.
know? But I've seen some wild footage of things that I'm like, you shouldn't be watching two grown adults spank each other and like do things and say that it's in honor of a cause or something like
Mhm.
that. Like
Mhm.
that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about
Mhm.
without getting graphic. Um but I do believe, you should have this conversation of, yeah, there's all types of love in the world, and there's
Mhm.
all types of identities in the world, and us as human beings, we have to be accepting of that, because that's all we have, right? Like, it's like a blip of a second right now that we're in, and
Mhm.
then we die, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's just so, I don't know, not to be like all bleak and all that, but a lot of this shit doesn't matter, right? So why not just allow people to be happy in whatever box or non-box that they want to put themselves in, and just carry on?
Mhm.
And I feel like social media just kind of undid that mentality, because now it's like, if you don't like something, I'm going to type it up and I'm going to let people know why I hate this,
Mhm.
or why this offends me, or whatever, when it's just somebody living their life, and obviously there are things that are offensive.
Yeah.
There are things that are really bad out there. I'm talking about somebody choosing to identify one way or express themselves in a way that feels comfortable to them, even though the outer shell or the outer packaging doesn't necessarily reflect that.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, back to the gender roles. um, yeah, it's I don't know. Have I ever thought? I'm trying to think. Gender roles. Have I ever thought that I was put into a box? Yes, at work. Like, I would be put
Oh, work
in
is always a
all the
hard.
time.
Yeah.
Like, I was thought, like, I've had people tell me, like, oh, this one guy was like, oh, like, we were talking about something. I forget now what it was, but he was surprised. He's like, oh, I'm surprised that you even know that. I just thought you were pretty. Like, you were just like, whatever. And it's like,
Mhm.
do you not think women have brains and like that
Mhm.
we can't think about things? And he was like, no, I just thought that you would be like into the Kardashians and like,
Mhm.
just painting your nails and doing all these
Mhm.
things. And I'm like, what year is this? Like, that I can't talk, it's just things like that where, or people are just like automatically assume because you're a woman, you're going to be more caring and sentimental and have a softer touch to like how you address people. It's like,
Mhm.
no, some women don't have that. And that's totally fine. Like don't put every woman in a box.
Yeah.
Or like when they're like, "Oh yeah, it's a nurse," and then they're surprised when it's a guy. Like
Yeah.
a male nurse that comes in. Like you have to say almost it's a male nurse. You can't just say
Mhm.
it's a nurse.
It's a nurse. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a nurse, you automatically in your brain picture a woman.
Mhm.
And the doctor, all right? A doctor, you automatically, like, I was conditioned to believe that the doctor would be a man,
Mhm.
right? So those type of things, a mechanic, like all
Mhm.
of these
It
roles.
was, what was it? I had a, now that you said mechanic, I had a lady plumber, was it? No, not plumber. HVAC contractor. She came,
Okay, okay.
and I remember because Sienna was here over the summer, and she goes, "That's a lady, mom." I'm like, "Yes, it is a lady," and it was like she was so happy to see a lady, and it's like she was like, "That's a lady,
That's
mom."
awesome.
Like, yeah, so that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, like you said, for like at work, I had that problem too.
Yeah.
And not even at work. I don't even know who it was that asked me. They were like, "Oh, what were you before you were a stay-at-home mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was a construction project manager." And they were like, "Whoa, that's not even something I would have expected." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, so what do you think I'm doing?" I don't even want to know what you thought I was doing
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
staying home with the kids. Like, I was just like, "Okay, all
Yeah.
right." And that made the conversation super awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the boxes that
Oops.
we're
All right.
some people need the boxes in order to understand life.
Yeah.
And anything outside of the box, it's like it throws their brain into like a frenzy. Like, what do you
Mhm.
mean? And that I don't know. I don't know. I don't Do you think we'll ever really get rid of the boxes? I don't
No,
think
because
so.
I think, like you said, we grew up with it. We're doing our best to get rid of it with our children and hopefully
Yeah.
pass that down. But there's still some people that are still going to be stuck in it, and then they'll teach it to their children, and then it goes on and it goes on and on. There's always going to be a
Yeah.
group that's just going to be doing their own thing.
We're also in a bubble. Like you
Hmm.
and I, like we grew up New York City. Like
Yeah.
this is not the way that the rest of the country
Oh
operates.
no,
Like,
definitely not.
you know, there's some very traditional views and things that are not normal to see
Yeah,
walking down the street.
and there's
Is
definitely places I will not visit
Yeah,
in the United States.
yeah. So, it's a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
that I think will always have a box. We'll
Hmm.
always have a category. And then the only thing that I will say is that we've made progress in the fact that it's no longer the box here and the box here and then the other.
Hmm.
Right now, everything has like a box and has like a category of its own as opposed to the other. Because I
Hmm.
feel like when you say the other, that's offensive,
Yeah.
right? Like that's saying you're not the norm.
Hmm.
You're
Like a deviant.
Yeah, and it's just negative. It's
Yeah.
negative, a negative way of painting it. So
Hmm.
I'm glad that we're stepping into that phase of things. And I just think all in moderation. Like
Hmm.
you don't need to go to extremes to prove a point,
Hmm.
and you also don't need to go to extremes to just turn and look the other way
Hmm.
when it comes to somebody living their life and minding their own business.
Yeah.
um, but when it comes to gender and like gender roles and all stuff, names are a big one. Like I was throwing out names and like gender neutral kind of names like Taylor, Hunter. Oh no,
I'm
Hunter
like,
was
what kind of names are? I'm trying to think of like what names are gender
gender
neutral.
neutral. There's a lot.
Yeah, I know. Now
Um,
that you mentioned the first two there, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that works. But I
I wanted
just,
Ember. I wanted
hmm.
Ember. I wanted Phoenix. There's another one. Oh my God, I'm forgetting now. And I remember Tom being like, What are these gender neutral like names, like ambiguous, whatever?" And I was like, "What? I like them. I like
Hmm.
that. Like I also like names like Samantha and Alexandra and things like that because it can be shortened to Alex or
Hmm.
Sam.
Hmm.
I like those type of names. Um, but I ended up with Derek. But that's, heartthrob Derek Jeter. I mean, there's a reason for this. Um, but yeah, like, how did you feel about name picking? And like, did you feel like you had to pick like something feminine, something masculine? Like,
I
what did
just,
that
it's
look
funny
like?
because I didn't, I don't, we just did boy or girl, obviously, whatever I was having, that's the name we ended up going with.
Yeah,
Um, but it was mostly like, what would you picture yourself? Would anyone make fun of them in school for the
We did,
name?
yeah, we
So
did consider that.
we went through a whole list, and it was like, no, you could call so because I liked oh my god, what was this name from? Did you ever watch Pretty Little Liars?
No.
Aria. That was the name of one of the characters, and I
Okay.
liked that name. And Victor was like, no, because they could call her Ariola. So I was like, okay, no. And
Okay.
then so that's what we did. We were like go through a list of names, and it was
Yeah.
like, that's not gonna go.
This rhymes with this, so that's out. Like,
So we
yeah.
ended up giving her Siena, the town in Italy, the spelling
Yeah.
and everything, and then Milo was for we actually were gonna name him after like an X-Men character.
Okay.
We
Which
had
one?
Logan.
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 Logan is a gender neutral name.
We liked Logan, but I don't know when we were still on the table with Logan and Milo. Milo I liked because of Milo Ventimiglia,
Yeah,
the
you told me
actor.
that, yeah.
So I was like, when we saw him, we knew he was a Milo, not a Logan.
Okay.
So we just gave him Milo.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's see, like, you guys didn't have that debate of that's to
And
this,
then,
that's
but
that.
then we also, when we initially thought he was a girl, we had Mila, Mila, Mila,
Mila. That I like
Mila. That was
Mila.
Mila. Yeah, it was either Mila or Milo. So
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
It worked out for us either way.
Did you guys find out later on? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like I think I said this, but
I know
I
you.
didn't. I didn't get. I don't do the blood test. I only found out during the anatomy scan, like at 5 months.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
That's when I
found out
found out.
during the blood test.
No, it was too early for me to find out. I like the suspense a little bit
Yeah. Okay.
and being able
Well,
to see it. I
gotcha,
try
gotcha.
to kind of figure it out myself
Figure it
before they
out
tell me.
where. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, no, so that's a very common thing. Like, oh no, we
Hmm.
got to get a very feminine, like, name. Like, I remember, I think I told my mom a couple of the names, and she's like, "Ay, ese nombre es feo." Like, and I'm
They
like,
always
"Oh,
got.
this is the last time I'm telling you what names I'm thinking of."
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I have had other people, not with my
Hmm.
names that I've chosen, but they've called and like we've talked. They're like, "Can you believe so and so like pick this name, like whatever?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "What's it to you?" So like, it's not your problem, you know.
It's not.
But that's back to the initial thing, like just look that way, or like
Yeah, mind your
just mind your
business.
business.
I just think everyone needs to be a little bit more respectful of what other people do. That's all.
Yeah,
And I think that got thrown out with a lot of things going on.
yeah,
So,
because everybody has their ability to make a public statement and has a
hmm,
platform now, and that's the
yeah.
problem. So, but anyway, all right. We talked about clothes, color, names, and just behavior overall. Like,
Hmm.
or, oh, this was one thing that we were talking about the other day, how we raise little girls versus little boys.
Hmm.
Remember, like, how as a little girl, I was taught, like, if a man's coming over or whatever, you tell them, like, put on longer pants or
Hmm.
cover yourself up or do this or do that or make sure that you don't sit on some, like close to somebody's lap or something like that, right? As a little girl. But
Hmm.
a boy is totally fine. They can come out without a shirt on and
Hmm.
like some shorts and like be totally fine,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
like, even, and obviously I understand that there are just some sickos out there in the world. I understand that. But we're conditioning girls and boys to behave a certain way from a very
Hmm.
early age. As a girl, you're conditioning them to think that if something were to happen to them, it was because
We're showing
dressed
skin or
they're
something. Yeah.
dressed a certain way,
Hmm.
or they called it upon them because of their behavior. They were too playful, or they were too this, or they were too that.
Hmm.
And like, I like, I know I told you, like, I grew up with being told these things, but then I was seeing like my guy cousins just run amok and like take their shirt off and do this, and it was all funny. It was all
Hmm.
funny when they would do it. I would
Hmm.
do it. I would get disciplined, right?
Hmm.
Like, girls don't do that. Put your shirt back on, or go to the room and whatever, whatever. And so I think that's problematic. That's one of the things that I wish, which I think our generation is undoing like
Mhm.
those old ways of thinking, because then you do grow up being that woman that thinks something happens to you inappropriately, like you get touched, you get harassed, you get whatever it is, you can think, did I cause that? Like, did
Yeah.
I dress a certain way? Was I too nice? That's another
Mhm.
thing. Was I
Mhm.
too nice? Like, you can no longer just be a friendly person.
Yeah,
Like, it gets taken the wrong way.
it
Um,
does.
but yeah, that was one thing that I definitely wanted to like highlight there. I think you said that you agreed, right? Like with, I don't remember because we
Well,
talked
it's
about it
funny that you said
offline.
that because my dad, I was talking to him actually. It might have been right after we had that conversation. My dad
Okay.
was like, "Oh, because you have to take, I don't know, long story short, we were talking about something and he
Yeah.
goes, "Oh yeah, because boys have to be treated differently from girls."
Yeah.
He said
So
they're totally two different things. And I'm like, "No, they're not. They're kids. They're not two different things. You got to teach both kids the same thing."
yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of. And he was like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "We're not going to teach, Sienna to be like, I don't know." I don't know what he was thinking, but he was making it as a remark because we were discussing like my older nephews or whatever, because
Okay.
he's almost a teenager, or he's a teenager, and there was stuff, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you got to treat boys differently," and I'm like, "No, you don't. They have
No.
to. Everyone has to be treated with respect." And
Yeah. Yeah.
not what he was trying to come at, because
I
he was
know.
like,
I know. I know.
I was bad when I was a teenager. I was like, "Yeah, okay, I believe
Yeah.
you."
Yeah. Like, I know what you mean. Like, with boys, it's a lot more like, oh,
Leniency, yeah,
also,
is
how
more
many
lenient.
girlfriends do you have? And how many
Is
girls
more
in school
lenient.
and this and that?
Hmm.
And then girls are like, you better not be
Yeah,
messing around with boys and this and that and whatever,
until you're in
because,
college, kind of
yeah.
situation. That's what I got.
But also, then that grows into that whole shaming. Like, if a
Hmm.
girl is seen with a boy, she's a
Yeah,
slut. If a boy is seen with a girl, he's the man, you know?
yeah,
And it's just like this whole big
double
thing where
standard
it's
thing.
just
Yeah.
like, yeah. Even things like back to what you were saying, education. I think they both should learn about menstruation and all
Yeah,
of
because
these
I
things.
think was that class? I'm trying to remember if there was a class where they took the boys out,
I mean, I know that they've done that in the past
where
in
they would
like
take
US
the boys
history.
out. They would take the
Yeah.
boys out and then talk to the girls
Oh,
separately
hello. They
over
had like
stuff.
workshop and then home ed or like home whatever,
Home ec,
home
right?
ec. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you had the girls baking, which in my school they did that. So like we were
Hmm.
baking and like doing all these
I wish
things.
they would have taught us that. I didn't get
And
that.
then
Hmm.
the boys were out doing woodwork, right?
Hmm.
And like doing experiments and like all this shit. And I'm like, what? And like back in the day it was even worse, you know?
Yeah.
Um but yeah, there's just a lot of double standard and just unfair like approaches to like raising a kid. And it all
Hmm.
starts in the womb, like how we address it.
Yeah.
From the colors, gender reveals, and all of that stuff. It's like, why? Why does it even matter?
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, lines are blurred, boxes are blurred, and here we are,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it all in a positive way. And, I think also trying to teach our children to be tolerant, human, good human beings that know not to tease or judge or criticize somebody else for choosing to express themselves differently,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's what is the most important thing. You don't have to understand it, you don't have to understand the why, but I think it's important for you to be tolerant
And respectful.
and respectful. And, if I raise a little boy or, right now he's a little boy, whatever he identifies with in the future, if I've raised Derek to be a kind human being that's respectful and tolerant, then I did a good job.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it'll be great though if he just ends up. I Tom and I always say this, and this is back to the gender thing. He's like, "What if he becomes like a football player or a baseball player and all that stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, he'll just fall in line with Derek Jeter, and it'll be like a thing." But again, that's back to the gender stereotypes and all this stuff. But anyway, that's another conversation because then that turns into should men, like biological men that identify as women, be able to play sports and compete with other women.
Oh my God. That's so
So,
cringy to me.
but like It's not
Because
fair.
I've seen the footage, and it's like
It's not a fair fight.
you have these biological men that identify as women that can kick a woman's ass so good,
Yeah.
but they're doing mediocre in another sport for
Yeah.
men only,
Yeah.
and it's like you can't. That's not right. I
It's
don't
not
think
right.
that doesn't work. I don't think that works. Just
No.
because we're getting our asses kicked.
Yeah. But even on the flip side,
I just seen the
have a
videos, and I just
have a
thought of the one
woman
video I saw. I was like, oh my god, no.
have a biological woman born as a female
Hmm.
who identifies as male go and compete in like a boxing match
Yeah, with a man.
with a man,
Yeah.
or something like, that's just not a like it, and then you see that I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a mom too, and we were talking about it, and it's like in high school, like there was, I forget where it was, but there was like a high school team that was allowing biological male that identified as female play in like a volleyball team or
Hmm.
something, or a basketball team,
Hmm.
and was crushing like
Well,
everybody else and all
it's
that
just
stuff.
it doesn't even I don't care what you identify as. It's
Yeah,
just physically when you compare with
it's
it's
different.
very different.
Yeah,
That I think that's
it's
the major problem. It's just physically.
but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the identity factor
Yeah.
of it. It's just it's not a fair
But
level, like playing field. That's the thing.
they just and then it's just but then it becomes an argument because it's just like
I know.
you're being an asshole because you're not letting them do whatever they want
Yeah,
to do.
yeah.
So it's like, but you got to
Um,
understand physically when I'm looking at you and you're looking super freaking brolic next to this woman, it's like that's not gonna work.
yeah. But then that goes into, right, like obviously we have to be respectful, tolerant, and all that stuff. But back to your point, it's like referring to somebody as how whatever pronoun they want to be addressed, that doesn't affect, like, the people that get offended by that, that doesn't affect them in any way. But if you put somebody in a league competing with the opposite sex, even though they identify as the same, that is affecting those women or those men and all that stuff. And that's what I feel like people aren't, they don't separate those two scenarios. They
Hmm.
kind of put the argument into one. And I feel
Yeah,
like those are two
yeah,
very different
yeah,
situations.
yeah.
You know, that person's going to win all the medals and all the trophies and all the stuff. And the women or the men in the other team, they're, it's just, it's not a fair fight.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like it gets a little blurry, and
Hmm.
we need to create some sort of like fairness with it all. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we have to be accepting, we have to do all this stuff, but we have to say, well, this kind of doesn't make sense though, because
Hmm.
maybe do a different league, but
Hmm.
don't
Yeah.
don't put it to, like, what about that girl that's working super hard over there but is never going to be able to meet, the standards or like the physical strength of a man that's been training their whole life. Like,
Hmm.
it's just different.
Yeah, it
And then
is.
flip that around.
Yeah,
It's
it
not.
is. We had that discussion. Vic and I were talking about that. I was like, this blows my mind. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is crazy.
My
Like I get
coworker.
and like I don't mind like what, but it's just it doesn't make sense when you see them together. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly this person's ass is about to get kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, listen, I'm all for it. I'm a feminist, and I'm all for like women striving to do better and equality for everybody. But
Hmm.
that's not equal.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's my, like, and obviously this is my opinion.
that's where you
This
draw the
is,
line.
but I respect everyone. You want to go into a league, you want to do all this stuff. Okay. The laws are allowing you, the rules are allowing you to do it. I don't have control over that. Right. But I just don't think it's fair.
Hmm.
That's my opinion on it. I don't think that's fair. Um, and, again, gender roles that's one thing, but I don't know. I wouldn't want, if I had a little girl, or if Derek, like, is over here competing in the girls volleyball team, and he's like spiking the ball and like doing all these crazy moves, and I'm like, that's not he's getting all the trophies. I'm like, that's not fair.
Hmm.
That's not fair. You should not be allowed to do that. And that's, like, I'm just thinking of it from like a parent perspective. Like, I would probably be like, no, like, you're gonna go and be in, I know how you identify, you could still identify that way, but you're gonna go have a fair game right now,
Hmm.
because that's not fair. Um, but yeah, anyway. I'm trying.
Not to piss off people. I know, but
Well, my
it's.
my coworker sent me a video. I think it was Friday. Yeah, and he sent me a video, and it was interviewing like three girls out in the street, and the guy said, "Would it be fair?" The interviewer said, "Do you think it would be fair for what's that boxer that's like one of the all-time best boxers? What's his name? From this generation? Not
Um,
Oh my God. He's like one of the top boxers right now. He's like money team. What is it? He's not a crowd favorite. Anyway, he's one of the top boxers right now.
hmm
I know people are going to comment like, how do you not know? Blah, blah, blah. I do know. I'm just blanking out on the
I
name.
definitely don't know. I don't follow that.
I'm going to blame it on mom brain. Okay. I'm blanking out on the name. I forgot. Um, so yeah, they were like, what do you think it would be fair to put up a woman that identifies as a man against this boxer to fight? And they were like, well, if she identifies as a man, then yeah, it's fair. She
hmm
should be able to. That person will get killed.
I
Like,
know.
that is not a fair fight. That is just not a fair fight. And like,
Physically,
physically, that is not a fair fight, right?
unless she's like, you know,
I gotta look
or
this up. I gotta look it
unless
up
they are
because I
like,
gotta.
like super bra, like maybe
Mayweather, Mayweather,
at the same.
Mayweather.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayweather. I didn't even get it. I just like, I didn't look at it, but Mayweather. Like, if this woman identifies as a man and decides to fight Mayweather, and like, to me, that's gonna be a fight. I don't want to watch that. Like, I don't want to watch that because it's not gonna be a fair fight,
hmm
and I'm just gonna be like, who allowed this to happen? Because you're not putting her in a fair fight.
hmm
You're not putting them in a fair fight.
hmm
You know. But anyway, that was one of the things that was like fresh in my mind, and I think that's why I was like, well, yeah, this makes sense, especially with the conversation we're having. But listen, I say all that. I don't mean to offend anybody, but if I did, please let me know.
Nicely.
I'll take the feedback. I'll take the feedback. I just feel like there are ways that we can grow and we can adapt and do all these things where everybody can live side by side and
And it'll be fair for
respect each other,
everyone.
and it'll be
Yeah.
fair for everyone. I just think that there are certain things that wouldn't be fair, um, without ostracizing or, leaving anybody out, you know.
hmm
But anyway, pink and blue, huh? All right, no, you say you take it off because I feel like I went off on a.
You're like, that's it. No more. Don't let me talk.
Shut up, Giselle. Like, that's it. No more. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
no.
Amy.
We're doing pink, blue, yellow, green, orange, purple now. But thank you for listening. This is just our thoughts on what we thought society and gender roles are. Um,
Yeah,
I would love to hear what you guys think. If you are doing something different that we haven't been doing with our kids and have some ideas for us, would love
yeah.
to hear those too.
Or if
Just
you'd
want
like
to,
to be a guest to also
yes.
talk about this, because I know that this is a hot topic. Um, I mean,
You could actually just email us
yep,
because sometimes things get lost on
in the
Instagram if you
Instagram, yeah,
direct message us. So that would be
yeah.
great. And we'll put that
And our
information.
email is what's new mama podcast at gmail.com.
That's
It'll
right.
be in the description as
That's right.
well, but it's not that hard to remember. What's new mama podcast.com at gmail.com.
Ah.
uh, I know I messed it up. I messed it up. Anyway, okay. Thank you guys for listening. We
And remember
appreciate you.
always that you're doing a good job.
Yes, doing a great job. Thank you, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.